Hello there. Welcome. Welcome everyone to Real Guitar Live. I'm Tomas Michaud, and I've got some great questions to answer already. People have pre-submitted questions. And if you think of some questions either along the way or as things come up, keep going, I'd love to have you enter them in the chat. If you could, please start the word with question or at least a big Q, because I won't be able to distinguish it quickly from comments. Welcome. That's good to see a good full crowd here. Tell you what I'll do. I'll put my little banner up there for a little while so as people enter, they see that. Now, what we're going to do is start with the pre-submitted questions. And after, I'm going to do our usual, what do you call it? Raffle. And that's for people who have completed the lessons in my Real Guitar Success membership for the month of February, and we're going to give away a $50 Amazon gift card. We do this every month, and it's meant to be just kind of a fun thing to give a little extra pizzazz to completing the lessons. It only means doing 10 minutes a day, and then you can decide if you want to save it for more work later. So let's start off with the questions. I did get a chance to read them over. Let's put that over there so I can see it more easily. I lost the questions. Okay, they were there all the time. Here we go. As an intermediate guitarist, I'm interested in learning two different guitar styles. Is it okay to learn both of them together, or should I learn one first and master it completely and then learn the other style? Thanks, Shulamit. Great question. When you say master completely, first of all, my first thought is you never quite master anything completely. So I would probably temper that to, get to some level that you decide is good enough for now. I mean, there's never a place where you completely master something, right? I would say in the early stages, it's probably better to lean towards roughly one style. I wouldn't isolate myself completely, but I wouldn't put all my energy into trying to learn two different styles in the beginning. In the beginning, a lot of the basic stuff is not style oriented. I mean, most styles use a lot of the same chords and basic techniques. If you're interested more in playing electric guitar, there are certain things that you'd want to emphasize more as opposed to acoustic guitar. And the same with a nylon or classical style of music. But in general, there's a body of material that is fairly common to all styles of music. So it's not such an issue. As you progress, it's probably better to spend a little more time trying to get good at one style and maybe dabbling in a few styles to kind of experiment. And this is kind of, I'm just thinking now how I've done this and how I've kind of encouraged students over the years. As you progress, I do personally, I can practice two different styles. I'll actually make time to practice one particular style on my acoustic steel string guitar, and I'll make another time to practice classical guitar techniques, nylon string, which is using my right hand finger style, very different. On the acoustic, I tend to use a pick. So when you're more advanced, you can make more decisions like that. Keeping in mind, when I practice two styles, I really allow enough time to really practice two styles. I don't divide up one half an hour or 45-minute session and play two different styles. I'll spend an hour, practicing, well, let's say anywhere from half an hour to an hour, a certain techniques on classical guitar. And then when I play acoustic guitar, I'll allow another half hour on just that. And that's not counting working on my own songs and creating stuff and other things that I do. So those are some ideas. There's no absolute one right way to do this. And I'd encourage you to kind of experiment and see what works for you. Though it seems to be more of a tendency for at least myself, and I think a lot of the students I've taught over the years, to try to they get bored in something and try to spread out before really spending enough time to feel a sense of accomplishment. And I just would watch for that. Don't let feeling bored rob you of that sense of really feeling like you've made some progress and you can do something on this one particular thing. And that's not just about styles, that's techniques, exercises, songs, anything. It's human nature to kind of get bored and just move on to something else before you really get the full benefit from it. Concerning the monthly guitar sessions, I usually open the tab with the lesson and try to figure it out myself. Then afterwards, I'll go to the actual video and watch it and make some corrections or make some more progress. Is this right, or should I do it differently? Or should I watch the lesson first, basically? I would say it's not a matter of right or wrong. I would say you're making some choices to kind of focus on figuring out how tab works and figuring out the song or the exercise without hearing it first. My preference personally would be to hear it first. In my mind, music is a sound, oral art, sound. And the written is just an extra thing to help learn the music, to write it down, to communicate with other people. And I want to create the sound I want and use the tools like tab, notation, or whatever, videos even, to watch a video. So by watching a video, you're hearing the sound that you're after, and then you can look at the tab or watch the video again to see what you need to do to create that sound. Or, by the way, I always say this, you don't have to do the lesson exactly as I play it. If I play an exercise and you want to do something a little different, for the most part, that works. And I usually tell you in the lesson, if there's something I really want you to get out of this, and you should do it this way for that reason. But long story short, I would encourage you to listen to whatever you're trying to do first and set aside the kind of mental trying to figure out stuff on paper. Let that take a back seat. Not the way adults tend to work. So you're, in a sense, you're developing a little different way of seeing things. We're used to using our intellect and figuring out for most of the things we do at school, work, and so on. So as adults, we're kind of trained that that's the way to do things. Children, not so much. They're not there yet. Of course, everybody has some temperament, too, to kind of go one way or another. But as an adult, we tend to do the intellectualizing part, the figuring out part. That comes more natural. If you want to add a drone note to a descending chord progression, how do I know what note to use and what if it sounds right? Okay, good question. There's kind of two parts of this. I'm going to talk about using drone notes. And a drone note is, like, let's say we're doing a chord progression, just to be clear, make sure we're on the same page. There we go. Okay, I gotta see myself, so see if I'm doing it right. Let's see, I'll do F, G, just a very simple chord progression. I'm trying to think how to do a C with a G. So I'm doing C with a drone, A minor with a C in the bass, F with a C in the bass, and now a G with a C in the bass. The C note was the drone. So the first and maybe the most obvious way to use a drone is to take the progression and take the bass note of the first note chord in the progression and use that as the drone. And that's what I just did. I used the C note. C is not part of the G chord, so I'm kind of forcing it a little bit. Technically, that would still be a G, a type of C chord. I'd say a C add 9, the D note there. Anyway, the point was I was using the C note throughout each of the chords. And it's actually in each of the chords all the way up into that G chord. Another possibility is to use the fifth of the chord. So what I mean is you take the first chord in the progression. So let me do G. It would be easier for me. Okay, G. The progression is going to be G, E minor, C, and D. And I want to use the fifth note of the first chord. So G, that would be G, A, B, C, D, the D note in each of those chords. So I would have to figure out a G, a D for the G, a D for the E minor. That's harder than I thought. Because I need, what I would normally do for that would I tune down the low string to a D. Oh, let me can do that. Now I got my D note there. D. That didn't sound as good as I thought the other example. Right, it came home when I hit the D chord, the fifth chord. It's the root of that chord. So another possibility is you could try a third of the first chord. Actually, you could try any note of the first chord and see what it sounds like. The bottom line is you need to experiment. There's not a formula that just works every time, all the time. And it depends on the sound that you're after. And to some degree, that depends on the style, or if you're writing music, the style that you're trying to create and what sounds good to you. Experimenting is the best way to do that. The other technique that I tell everybody is to play some exercise or song that uses a droning note, and to practice that and do different ones over time, and you get in your mind kind of a library of, I could create this sound using that because I've done that before. Just creating something from scratch, there is sort of always this doubt, am I doing it right? And part of that is from experience, you get more confidence that from things that you've played from either songs or exercises, you get more confidence that it worked and it sounded good in that exercise, so I can do that in this song in this key. Or I can change it to a different key and basically change the drone note to fit that key. Another tip is when you're making a drone note, now a very common one for me is to do the drone note in the key of D. D, B minor. I'm singing a D note the whole time. Try varying the rhythm. Try varying when you resolve the drone note. So often what I'll do in a chord progression is I'll resolve the drone note like this. I'll do that same progression. It's like I resolved when I went to the A. I changed to the A drone note on the fifth, on the A chord. So those are some tips and some ideas. Next question, where'd it go? You can experiment too with different octaves in the drone. So instead of this low D, you can try. I changed to a little higher octave on the D. In today's practice session, you gave the option to use a bar chord or open chord. How do I decide in any given song if I should use bar chords or open chords? It's just simply the sound that you want. And, to some degree, that's a personal choice. If you're trying to play a certain style of music, it might sound, you know, if I was doing heavy metal and rock, generally bar chords sound more like that style of music, especially with electric guitar and the distortion and everything. And with acoustic guitar, a little different. And, of course, how comfortable you are with bar chords. If there's a struggle and you're playing a song and you can find a way to play that chord without a bar, that might be the way to go. If it sounds horrible and you need a bar, well, then you're going to have to practice it. But finally, sometimes, let me... I might want to, if I'm playing something down here, I might want to stay in that area. And that's a sound that I want. It's just not wrong to do this. Different sound, right? I like it. I like both. If I was playing electric guitar, I probably wouldn't play a big giant open chord. They tend to get mushy with all the distortion and all, but acoustic it sounds great. So bottom line is, it's an experimenting thing, and you have to decide for your particular song, or especially if you're composing music, if that's what you want, if that's the sound that you want. Is there a song that I want, oh, there is a song I want to play fingerstyle. Should I want to change the song to fingerstyle, play melody and chords together. Should I first figure out the melody or the chords? Now, again, this is just two different ways to go about it, and I do both. In other words, sometimes I'll get the melody first, and sometimes I'll do the chords first. And when you say figure out, I assume you're doing some other song, somebody else's song, as opposed to arranging a song yourself for your own composition. I would normally, I think I lean towards the chords first. I just want to figure out the chords for the song, and then I'll hum the melody. So I can play it. I can see that I can play the song. And I'll start very simple. If I'm going to do fingerstyle, I'll usually just map out the chords. And that's a whole thing. If you're figuring out a song and you got the music, you just follow the chords in the music. If you're listening and trying to figure out by ear, I'll usually try and find the bass notes to the chord and figure out if it's a major or minor chord. If I were creating my own song, I often do start with a melody first and then find which chords I decide gives me the feel and sound that I want. There's not one chord that fits in a situation. That's the only way it is. There's a variety. You can use more chords, less chords. You can change the harmony slightly to create a slightly different sound. If you're learning, again, somebody else's song, I'd suggest starting with finding the chord progression and then find a pattern that generally gives you the feel of the song with your right hand, a finger picking pattern. Start as simple as you can. And then try to then play the melody and see how you can fit that melody within that finger picking pattern. I often start very simple when I'm learning or arranging a song fingerstyle. In other words, I'm taking a song and making my own version of its fingerstyle. I'll start with just a bass note and the melody. So I'm just hitting the bass note. That gives me the harmony. I know it's a G chord. Now I'll just take the bass note from the G chord and play the melody with that. I'm not sure what I'm trying to play there. It sounds like maybe Silent Night. Sounds like part of Silent Night. Well, I won't try and play the whole song. I don't remember it. Let me see. I'm going to take a quick look at the chat to make sure I'm not missing any questions that are related. And I can only go quickly because, of course, you don't want to sit here and watch me read every single thing. Okay, I didn't see anything that was like part of that question. But feel free, Shulamit, if you're on the call, to add some more questions or some clarifications. So Jen is asking, I'm finding bar chords difficult. I really have a hard time getting my fingers across the strings, enough pressure. Especially that F chord. Is there an easier form? Yes, absolutely. Oh, by the way, with the fingerstyle, I do have a lesson on arranging with a little more detail, and I'll put a link to that in the show notes. So anyone interested can go to the show notes. It'll be out on Monday, and I'll have a link to a lesson that's more detailed than what we just talked about. So the F chord, the form of the F chord I'd probably go to for people without doing a bar is this one. It looks like a C chord. And I move my second finger up a string, up as I'm talking pitch, and then the pinky next to the third finger to replace that string. That's an F chord. It's actually an F with a C in the bass. I kept the C note in the bass. If it was a bar, I would just take my first finger and bar it across there. So I would encourage you to learn that chord. Even if you're great at bar chords, this chord has uses. I like this sound. It's keeping that C note. It's kind of a drone. C note in the bass. That said, the F chord, you should know, is probably one of the hardest bar chords. It's unfortunate. It's often the one people need to learn because it's, you know, it's used in a lot of songs to make it short. It will help you to learn other bar chords and back into the F. It has to do with the tension up here is harder than it is way up here, or pretty much in the middle of the neck, is what I'm trying to say. Tension anywhere near the top and the bottom is more difficult. The other thing is when you're making bar chords, you don't have to get your fingers all the way across perfect. When you make the bar chord, these three fingers take the place of any tension you need in the middle. So now even if this note is dead, it still sounds okay. Or how about this tie note, dead, completely. You can't even tell, right? I would encourage you, the biggest problem people I see with bar chords is they try to jump from open chords into bar chords with no preparation. It's almost like it's just the next chord. But it's not the same step. You'll learn a C chord, a G chord, an E minor, so on, so on. Then all of a sudden, bar chords is like that. Prepare. Break it down. Just practice this a little every day. When I say practice, I don't mean 10 minutes and you're done. I'm talking, a little bit every day. Do a bar chord exercise. Practice this part of the bar chord every day. And then try putting some... without the bar, just make the chord and put the bass note there. There's a bunch of techniques for that. You have access to bar chords for everyone, and I do that for you step by step. So if you haven't gone through that course, go through it. If you have gone through it, go back and review some of the things. If the F's still hard, or bar chords in general are still hard, probably you need to go back and review and some of the exercises and do them more steadily, continuously. A little bit every day as part of your practice sessions. And if anybody's not a member of Real Guitar Success and you don't have access to that course, I have plenty of posts on my blog about bar chords. Just type in the search bar chords and you'll see plenty of exercises to practice. So you don't have to just come up with something on your own. Dave's asking, I'm having trouble playing the chords that require bending the knuckle. So he's talking about stuff like this. Here's I call a partial bar chord, right? And you bend the first finger, the knuckle pushes up in the air and you collapse the first knuckle and that makes this chord. And the other place there's a collapsed knuckle is like in I call it fifth string bar chord because the bass note's on the fifth string. Yes, you're not alone, Dave. Many people have a hard time with that. Matter of fact, in my bar chords for everyone course, I saved this one for quite a while towards the end. It's because that's the harder thing to collapse. Some people will make that bar chord like this with 3 fingers. It's hard on a regular acoustic guitar like this or electric. On a classical, it works better because the strings are wider apart, so the fingers can fit in there easier. It's more common on the nylon string to do it that way. There's substitutes for all the chords if you want to go there. But again, I would encourage you to practice exercises. And I don't know if you remember Real Guitar Success, but again, the Bar Chords for Everyone course has exercises to help work the fingers before you have to use them in this way. I'm pretty confident that I haven't come across anybody that just couldn't do it, but they needed to back into it slowly and not just jump in there, try it a dozen times and say, gee, it just doesn't work. It's a matter of exercising. I would say, if you're not a member, go to my blog and just type in, what's the good thing to type in? The A bar chord is the key. A bar chord is in the search, because that's where you need the A style bar chord. That's it. We call it A because it's made off an A chord moved up. So this is an A chord, A. That's a lot of people call this the A form bar chord. And that's where you really have to use it mostly. The Fs, maybe, I mean, you can use this F, right? Or you can just do a full. Some people actually have an easier time doing a full than this partial bar. So that might be you, I'm not sure. Hope that helps. Can you please point us, this is Rogelio asking, if you can point us in RGS, the Real Guitar Success membership, where to learn about capo and how to use it to change keys. Yes, I will. Just go into Real Guitar Success, go into search and type in capo. You'll find a course called Capo Magic, and that's exactly what I do. I'll show you how to use the capo, how to use it in basically change keys, and then I do a little more advanced of more complicated changing keys and capo combined. So you can take any or all of that. You can just go step by step. And if another way to get there, by the way, is just to go into the RGS University and look through the courses, their boxes. One of them says Capo Magic. And that's exactly what I'm doing, exactly what you're asking. Anyone who wants to check my blog, try the same thing. Pretty sure I have videos, lessons on there also. Just not as extensive and not as step-by-step. I would like to learn more about reading standard notation, actual notes as opposed to tab. Is this something I really don't need or use? It's a good question. I want to think of how to answer it. I read notation. The main reason I read notation is because I study classical guitar, and it's a must for playing classical. It's just because that's how it's generally taught, and there's tons of stuff written in standard notation. Nowadays, you could probably all find most everything with tabs added too, but it's not that hard. It's like anything else. If you don't speak a language, it's hard. Once you get it, it's not hard. And reading standard notation, initially it's much harder than tab, because tab is just a very visual thing. But when you get more advanced, it has more information, and going faster with standard notation is easier than going fast with tab. Let's put it that way. Reading tab fast is not as easy as reading standard notation once you can read the notation and you practice. Not just figure it out, you have to practice it and get good at it. Like a language, you practice it. It's not an intellectual thing. You can learn grammar till you're blue in the face, but if you can't string this stuff together fast enough, you can't talk. I would say it depends on your goals. If you want to play some guitar that notation is a benefit, like classical in particular, a studio guitarist have to read notation for that reason. They need to be able to put something up and within a few minutes be able to play it. They don't have time to memorize it. I would say start slowly and know it's going to take time. Just consider it something you need to practice every day and work at, just like a language. You don't want to say, I'm going to do an hour once a week on a language. Just forget everything. But if you don't, that might not be the best place to put your time. You've got a limited amount of time and, attention, and it may not be the best balance of where to use your time. Ultimately, it is up to you, but you can dabble in it too. There's a middle ground. Dabble in it and see, what it takes, and anything you learn, you're probably going to be able to benefit from. At least what I do is, even if I'm reading tab, I'll go to the notation and kind of confirm, yeah, I got it right. Or sometimes the notation will tell me how long to hold a note and the tab doesn't. And if I don't know the song by ear, that's a real help. If I know it by ear, I can usually just use the tab. But it doesn't hurt to play around with it. But I would say, don't stop everything you're doing just to read notation, because it's not going to get you to be a better guitarist, so to speak, on a whole basis just by reading notes. For most styles, if it's classical guitar, read notes, absolutely, 100%. Matter of fact, learning classical guitar, I would read the notes from the beginning, step by step, along with practicing exercises and techniques and everything, right from the very start. As a member of Real Guitar Success, is there a way to collaborate with other members, like bounce experiences off each other or learning tips in between the monthly meetings, these sessions? Yes, the forum is a great place for that. And I would love to see more people use the forum for that reason, to just say, hey, here's what I'm doing. Is there a better way? Has anybody found more ideas? Or, hey, I got this. This finally clicked, and here's what worked for me. I just wanted to let everybody else know about that. Now, Rogeli goes on to say, I think it would help me practice, and it would help me if I were jamming with someone to be accountable. So now that's another step, using the forum for accountability. I'm glad you told me this, Rogelio. I think there's something I could do in the forum to add more accountability in the lessons in general. And I'll have to think about that. I'll do it in a way that works for people. Accountability, I think, is a very powerful thing. And that's one thing that I really like, having a personal teacher. I like, if I go see somebody, I feel accountable to show them what I've been working on, or at least to say, yeah, I did what you told me to practice. I think there's a way we could do that in the forum or in some aspect of the lessons. And I have to think about that some more. Any ideas from any members, I really appreciate it. The other thing is, you're asking about jamming. I'm inferring from your questions about jamming with other people. And no, I don't have a way to connect people together. And I'm not sure I would want to go there. It's a little tricky because, I don't know how to do that yet. I think I would start with accountability, adding some accountability. I'd be a little nervous having people post like ads for people jamming together without some way of like making sure we don't have any strange or uncomfortable situations developing. The groups that I found in El Paso want to charge for to attend a meetup. He says, this is crazy to me. What are your thoughts? Well, I would actually be happy to pay if the groups had somebody who was spending time organizing it and doing some of the administrative work, getting people together, sorting out, if this is a good fit, so you don't just have random people with different styles and levels and nobody knows what to do. I think it's worth money. I'd pay for that, and I'd be happy to. Even better if they were an experienced musician that could offer some coaching and guidance along the way. Whew, that would be fantastic. I think free and cheap is overrated, quite honestly. I think if anything is free and cheap, you have to question what are you giving up? And I think I've changed my mind about that since I was young. As I get older, I realize there's always a cost, either in lower quality, somebody's time and effort, there's always a cost. It's just a matter of whether you're paying in money or something else. Okay, so that's all the questions that I have pre-submitted. Let's go over here and find what people have been adding. I'm going down the line. I'm looking for a question or at least a cue. Dan says, a beautiful Martin. Thank you. Thanks for noticing. It's new. It's a Eric Clapton model. I've tried a bunch of guitars, and I love this guitar. It's currently my favorite acoustic guitar. I'm impartial to my flamenco and classical guitars, but this is my favorite acoustic guitar. I like the sound of the smaller guitar. It's more focused, and for things I do when I'm recording and all, it just doesn't clutter things as much. I'm really enjoying it. And I bought it used on Reverb. It's already adjusted. I don't have to, I usually spend money to have a guitar adjusted. This is already adjusted. I'm very happy with it. Question, what is the model of the Taylor? So this is a Martin Eric Clapton model, 000, just in case. It's called a 000 28 EC. And that EC stands for Eric Clapton. My Taylor is a .200 series. Oh, it's a 214 CE. It's an electric acoustic. So this model is just acoustic, right? Yeah, just acoustic. This Martin. Different sounds. I'm glad they have both. They are different sounds. The Taylor's fuller. I will still use the Taylor. It's not one's out and the other's in, but I'm really kind of enamored with this guitar right now. What is the model? Oh, another question on the Taylor. Okay, using your videos. That's the 214 CE. I think it's a couple thousand or a $1,500 guitar. I think it's a good guitar for the money. This is a more expensive guitar. Probably double that. Triple if you pay list price. I think 4,000 list price, but I bought it used. If my guitar has steel strings, can I change them to nylon? That's a good question. We get that question a lot at my music school. Not that simple. Generally, acoustic guitars and nylon-string guitars have different heads, makes it harder to do that technically, and a different way of attaching the strings. Again, regular classical guitar strings wouldn't easily fit on this guitar. But there's a bigger problem. I could make that work. They make ball-end nylon strings that you could make go in here. You could maybe figure out a way to tie them on. You could even change the machine heads. And anyway, but it's not that simple. Steel string guitars, if you put them on a nylon string, well, first of all, let me explain. There's a metal rod in this guitar. All acoustics have it. It's because the tension of a steel string is pulling the neck this way, and the rod is countering that. Classical guitars don't have that because there's not as much tension. You don't want to put steel strings in a classical guitar. You would warp the neck over time, probably little by little until it was warped. There's no rod to counteract the steel strings. On the steel string guitar, if you put nylon strings on here, it just sounds horrible. It's not designed for it. So if you could, the bracing underneath the face of the guitar would not complement the sound of nylon. It would just sound dead, mushy, and very low volume. There is a solution. There's a string called silk and steel, which I highly recommend. They are kind of a hybrid between steel and nylon, and they're meant for just that reason. You put them on your steel string, they fit, they're made for steel string, but they're softer and easier to press down, and they're quieter. They have a different sound. Some people don't like that sound. They like the brightness and the sharp of the steel string, and certainly they're much louder steel strings. But again, you may even like that sound, and even if you don't, it might be a good compromise to make it easier on your fingers. You can also put electric guitar strings on an acoustic guitar. What I mean by that is just very light strings. You can even find maybe very light acoustic if playing the left hand is hurting and you want lighter strings. I often find that people who ask me to make this guitar easier to play in the beginning stages, silk and steel fit the bill well, but also a little bit of adjustment of the guitar. Often they don't realize how unadjusted their guitar is until they have a repairman adjust it for them. And let's see, what do we got? slash chords. Does this make sense? Chord in front of slash is the chord, and the note on the back of a slash chord is the bass. Dan, you were right on, not close, right on. When you see what I call a slash chord, that's like a C note, slash, and then another note, let's say C slash G. What that's saying, it's a C chord with a G in the bass. So I put the bass note, a G. That's a C with a C in the bass, fifth string. That's with the G in the bass. That would be C slash G. Here's a chord I like. This is F. Kind of an open sound with a G in the bass. F slash G. Here's a D slash F sharp. I've put the F sharp in the bass. So we'd call that a slash chord, a C slash F sharp. Any more questions? Let's see. Question, yes. Trick to identity and play minor seventh chords. Identify and play minor seventh chords. So I think, I don't really know what you're asking. Maybe you could clarify that. I don't know if you're having a hard time figuring it, if you're having a hard time remembering the chords. I don't know if you're doing bar chords or open chords. So maybe some more clarifying. This is Kuntak Nandi. Let's go on in the meantime. Hopefully he'll add some clarification or something more specific. See, I will review bar chords for everyone. Good idea. David, I'll exercise more consistently. Yes, yes. I taught at my music school, and I talk to teachers all the time. One of the biggest problem I find with people doing bar chords is they just jump right into it, and right into an F chord, which is one of the harder ones, and they get really frustrated. They don't realize both how hard that is, what they're doing, and they haven't prepared, and they don't realize that they're doing one of the most difficult chords, and they come to me and say, I can't play bar chords. And first thing I do is back them up. Let's just, for a week, 2, 3, let's just play some exercises and some power chords, and then build the bar chords up. It really works every time that I can remember. Part 2 of my question, RV. I asked because I have a Tonewood amp on the steel string guitar, but I can't use it, so thought changing to nylon would help. Probably not, RV. That's probably not the way to go there. I don't know if the Silken Steel will work with the Tonewood. I understand a Tonewood amp is something you like attach to your guitar, so it makes it like louder. And I don't know how it works. I don't know if it's taking your acoustic sound and amplifying it, or if it's actually using the steel strings in some way to make the sound. So that's something that you would want to find out. I don't know. Maybe a Google search or the store that you bought it at would know. Okay, so I've come to the end of my questions. If you have any more questions, I'd love to answer. Add them. I'll do the drawing, and I'll check one more time before I close up for today and see if there's any last-minute questions. Let me put my guitar down. My beautiful Martin. And again, for those who've come in later, this is people who are on the RGS site that are completed the guitar session. So each day they get a new guitar session. There's 5 each weekday. And I only ask that you spend 10 minutes on it, then decide if you want to save it in your favorites for later and come back at it, or just check it off. Either way, you check it, say I've done it, and then 5 days a week, do that for 4 weeks. You're in the drawing. $50 Amazon gift card, just for fun. Just add a little excitement to the practice, along with your consciousness. Chuck, you're in. You won the $50 Amazon gift card, and like I always say, for completing the lessons, you're all a winner, really. This is just a little extra to make it interesting. Thanks for playing along, everyone. Okay, no more questions I could see. I'm going to close up for today. Thank you all for joining me today. It's been an honor to be here, and I really appreciate your attention and your willingness to make time to be here. And if you're watching this after, I will put show notes. I will put timestamps so you can find the questions and find the answers right away, and maybe add some links so I can even kind of expand on the questions. It'll be out Monday, by the end of the day for sure, maybe early, depending on when my assistant are scheduled this week. Thanks again. I'll see you again next month, the first Thursday of every month, 12 noon my time, that's Pacific Standard Time. Not sure what is your time. Bye for now. Take care.